All right, today we're going to tackle a big one. We're going to challenge a core belief in modern business, this idea that data is king. Because we're going to explore why, when it comes to true innovation, your imagination might just be the most powerful tool you have.
So this is really the heart of it all. In a world that is just obsessed with analytics and big data, a statement like this feels, well, it feels pretty radical, doesn't it? It suggests that the path to a real breakthrough isn't found by analyzing the past, but by actually inventing a future that doesn't even exist yet.
But here's the thing. That's not what's happening in most boardrooms. A recent EY survey found that a whopping 81% of executives think data should be at the center of every single decision. The goal for a lot of companies is to just completely get rid of gut feel. So you've got this massive clash, right? This push for data-only decisions fighting against the very real need for creative imagination.
Now, this obsession with data didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It has deep roots, stretching all the way back to the 1950s when business schools were being pushed to become more like the hard sciences, more analytical, more rigorous. But you gotta wonder, has the pendulum swung a little too far?
To figure that out, let's actually go way, way back to Aristotle. Now, we all know him as the guy who basically laid the groundwork for the scientific method, the very foundation of analysis. But here's the part that often gets left out. Aristotle also knew its limits.
And this right here is such a brilliant way to understand his thinking. Aristotle saw two totally different worlds. On one side, you've got the world of necessity. This is the stuff governed by the laws of nature, like gravity, things that you just cannot change. That's where science and analysis live. But then there's the world of possibility. This is where things can be different, all because of human choice and invention. And that is the world of strategy and innovation.
And this right here is the core problem we're talking about. We've gotten so good with the tools of data and science, the tools for the world of necessity, that we just try to slap them onto everything. We're essentially trying to analyze our way into a future that we really should be inventing. It's like using a hammer to bake a cake. Wrong tool for the job.
So, how do we start to fix this? Well, the first step is just learning to see the difference. For any business decision you're facing, it's about applying a super simple can versus cannot test. You got to separate the parts you truly can't change from the parts you absolutely can.
Let's make this real. For decades, the process for bottling water was pretty much set in stone. As you can see, you heat up a little plastic form, use air to blow it into a bottle shape, you cool it down, and then you fill it with water. Now, the laws of thermodynamics, those are the cannots. They govern each step. How hot the plastic gets, how fast it cools, that stuff is fixed.
But the order of those steps, the process itself, that's not a law of nature. That's just the way it's always been done. And this is where imagination kicks in. Someone had to ask that powerful, game-changing question, what if we challenge the process? What if we could actually form the bottle with the water we're putting inside it? And that question led to a real breakthrough. A company called Liqueform figured out how to use the liquid itself to mold the plastic, combining two steps into one. They challenged what everyone thought was a cannot and discovered it was actually a can. This is exactly the kind of thing that happens when you apply imagination to a problem instead of just analyzing the data you already have.
Oh, and the Lego case is another perfect example. The data couldn't have been clearer. 85% of their players were boys. A lot of managers looked at that and saw a cannot, a fact of nature that girls just aren't as interested. But the CEO reframed it as a can. We just haven't figured out how to inspire them yet. That simple shift in thinking led to deep research, new insights about how girls play, and eventually the launch of the massively successful Lego Friends line.
Okay, so we get it. We need to tell the difference between what we can change and what we can't. But how do you actively create those new possibilities? Turns out it requires a completely different toolbox than data analysis.
It all starts with what you could call breaking the frame of the problem. A lot of the time, our own assumptions are so deep we don't even realize they're there. Take those consultants working for nonprofits. Their frame was, donors hate funding overhead. That's it. But when they stopped pitching and actually started listening to donors, they realized the real issue wasn't the cost. It was a lack of trust. Unframing that one single assumption opened up a whole new universe of solutions.
So once you have that brilliant new idea, you've got to convince people to believe in a future they can't see. And guess who wrote the original playbook for that? Yep, Aristotle again. He laid out these three drivers of persuasion: ethos, which is all about your credibility; logos, the logical soundness of your story; and pathos,
your ability to make that emotional, empathetic connection with people.
And this isn't just some dusty old theory, okay? This stuff really works. After a huge, messy merger, two insurance companies were dealing with a really skeptical workforce. So instead of just throwing data at them, the leader built a new story. He used ethos, logos, and pathos to sell a vision. And just look at the result. Employee engagement shot up from a pretty awful 48% to an incredible 90% in only 6 months.
And that engagement? It wasn't just some feel-good metric. It translated directly to the bottom line. Get this. In a market that was actually shrinking by 8%, their business grew by 8%. They didn't just analyze the sad data of a declining market. They wrote a new story and inspired their people to completely defy.
Now, inside that news story you're building, there is one tool, one sort of secret weapon that is just ridiculously powerful for making a new idea feel real. And that's metaphor.
I mean, Aristotle himself called being a master of metaphor a sign of genius. And why is that? Because a really good metaphor creates an instant bridge. It connects something new and scary to something familiar and understood. It just clicks in your brain.
And if you want to see just how make or break a metaphor can be, look at this comparison. It's night and day. The first cars, they were sold as a horseless carriage. Simple, brilliant. You instantly knew what it was and what it replaced. Now, think about the Segway, an amazing piece of technology. But what was it? It didn't have a metaphor. It wasn't like anything else. People couldn't get their heads around it, and this amazing invention just failed. A great metaphor isn't just nice to have. It can be everything.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. Data analysis is absolutely crucial for understanding the world as it is. That's the world of necessity. But for creating the world as it could be, you need more. You need imagination, you need a story, and you need to persuade. So the next time you're staring down a major challenge, ask yourself this question. Are you just going to analyze the past? Or are you going to have the courage to imagine a new story?